Welcome to the BXG Podcast, the podcast where pop culture and nerd culture meet.
You think it's just going to be barbecue sauce?
Because if you actually read those books, it's just gobbledygook.
I really think clothes should be mandatory.
Speaking of Star Wars,
Captain America.
trailer reaction video. The Menu on HBO Max, starring Ralph Fiennes, Anna Taylor-Joy, Nicholas Hoult, Hong Chow, Janet McTeer, Paul Adelstein, John Leguizamo, Amy Carrero. Sorry. That's about it as far as the important people go. So this is a film about a select dinner party at a very famous restaurant on an island. It's called Hawthorne is the name of the restaurant, I believe, and the island.
Yeah.
And it's a 7-course meal of pretty much complete and total insanity. And I'm not going to lie, when you text me, I'm going to read the text you sent. Okay. You said the Menu is on HBO. It is crazy in the best possible way. These group of people go to this fancy dinner on this island and things go sideways quickly. I'm expecting comedy, and not that. Not at all.
Maybe a dark comic element to it.
You know what? I like dark comedy. American Psycho, one of my favorite movies. Depending on the day, my favorite movie. I would call that dark comedy. This I would call borderline, like not quite horror, but psychological thriller, perhaps.
Sure.
But with that being said, why don't you take us through the dishes, chef, and tell us what you thought.
So I don't remember all the dishes now. I mean, my favorite dish that was served was the breadless condiments. So this is a restaurant known for their bread, and this is actually a good way to kind of define what this is all about anyhow. So it's a restaurant known for its bread, and instead of sending out bread, they literally just send out a small wooden spoon and then these different condiments that you would put on the bread if the bread
accoutrements, some would say.
Yeah, the accoutrements. And to me, that kind of encapsulates what this whole thing's about. And that's before things go really awry. You can feel the tension, and it's definitely weird. I mean, the clap, that whole thing was building that tension. And Anna Taylor-Joy's character, who was she? What was, the deal there? And I think the humor for me came mostly from like the beginning, the Nicholas Hoult character's obsession with the Hawthorne restaurant and the chef. And so that was the humor part. And then as the dinner progresses, we start to realize that the courses come out in a fantastical way.
Some would say.
It starts out, maybe like a little sprinkling, or the way that all the chefs would bring out all the chefs would bring out the meals, and they talk about it, and they talk about the wine, and it was all very hoity-toity.
Mm-hmm.
And it's building up. And this is a quick movie. This is something that was easily digestible in the sense of you could pound away through it pretty quickly.
Oh.
But there is a shock moment.
Yeah.
That happens.
I believe it was course number 4.
I think it was
5?
4.
It was 4 or 5.
4 or 5.
Well, let's think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say it was 4. Because the first was the oysters, the second was the breadless bread, the third was the chicken with the scissors in it.
Oh yes, the scissor, yeah.
Yeah. So
The drunk.
Yeah, I think it was the fourth one. The mess.
So the mess. And
yeah.
This is where you start to, I mean, the chicken one was weird. The story was weird about him having to choke his dad out.
Yeah.
And stab him with the
kitchen
scissors.
Yeah.
The kitchen scissors.
And his mom's just there
drunk. Yeah. So you realize it's a little weird at that. It's weird going into this, but then this sous chef comes out, and he's, the head chef is talking about him, and he's saying
he's good. He'll never be great.
Yeah, he's basically kind of putting this guy in his place. All these things he does really well. He really helps out. He's good at these things, but yes, he will never be great. And then he blows his brains out.
The sous chef
commits suicide.
Yeah,
the sous chef commits suicide in front of everybody. It's very shocking. This is the thing too about this movie is everything is very when it happens, it's very loud and it's very graphic. And then we know. And everybody is freaking out. This is
at
where
that
everybody
point, though. I'm
out.
not gonna lie. I still thought, and I think one of the characters said, the food critic said, "Oh, this is just part of the show. This is theater. It's theater. It's it's not real." And at that point, I was like, half and half. Of okay. Seems like it's probably real, but I was still expecting this to be kind of a comedy at that point.
Sure.
And it wasn't until I believe it was a politician or one of the regulars had his finger removed that I was like, finger. Oh, okay. I mean, we're very much in fuck around and find out mode here.
Yeah. So I'll be honest, when I knew this movie was a little had graphic elements. I didn't know how graphic. I definitely knew that going into it, but I didn't know it was going to get to this extreme.
Yeah.
After we were done watching, I was like, what was your favorite weird part? Honestly, the bad stuff of the bad. And my favorite was the fallen angel. It was so insane. And because you see that guy going out into the field earlier, and then here he is, and we're gonna drown in front of everybody. And people trying to break the glass, you start to realize that glass isn't breakable. And that's where everyone is at this point realizing they are basically on a death.
We're all gonna die.
Yeah, we're all gonna die. And this is where also the part now where Margot, Anna Taylor-Joy's character, Margot, it's not her real name, but she's not eating anything. She is Tyler Nicholas Hoult's guest. Date, whatever. And this starts to unravel. Chef Slowick, Ray Fiennes, is wondering why she doesn't eat, and she's like, I'm not that hungry, and it causes a bunch of she becomes more and more involved. And now there's the great scene of the men are released to go and try to get away.
Run away.
45 seconds to try to find a way out. And then after that, their staff, the chefs, at the end of the day, it's still just the chefs and the sommeliers that go and catch them and bring them back.
Which was actually pretty funny. The guy in the chicken coop.
That was great. And he gets for finishing, being the last person caught, he gets a special dish, which is in an eggshell. It's just so funny. And so they come back, and all the girls are all the women, I'm saying the little ladies, girls' night, are in the restaurant eating, and the sous chef is a woman, and they find out it was actually her idea that, let's kill everyone this time. And they're like, what? What is happening? So everybody gets brought back in. Margot is still not eating. And Tyler is now asked to cook.
This was my favorite course.
This was hilarious. So, go ahead, Brent. If it says your favorite course, go ahead.
Well, part of it was part of one of the things that I did think was like really clever was it was like you were watching a food show where every course would come out and it would tell you what the name of the course was and the things that were in it. And he's made to cook a course, Nicholas Holt's character, and what it ends up being is Tyler's bullshit. And he's just like he's like shaking and he's trying to cut things and he's just like completely undercooks this lamb, and it's just like, wow, that's terrible, Tyler. Go hang yourself now. Which he does.
He does, because he's so obsessed. And we should say at this point, right before that is when Margot realizes that she, was brought there to die too. She didn't know, but he knew. Everyone,
yeah.
Everyone that was invited knew one way or not everybody knew it, but anyone that was like actually got the actual invite knew they were going to die. And so other people start to realize they are too. And Anna Taylor-Joy, she's like, I don't like any of your food. I just
like to send it back.
I like to send it back. And you don't do that. I like to send it back. And then she just asks for just a good old fashioned hamburger.
Cheeseburger. Yeah.
Cheeseburger. And he does it. He makes her this cheeseburger. Slovak does, the head chef. He makes her a cheeseburger. She likes it. She takes one bite of it and she asks for a doggy bag and to go. And she's let to leave because she's not part of this grand scheme. This thing was all supposed to be complete with Tyler's other date.
Right.
And because she wasn't there and she wasn't involved, it messed it up. So she's able to leave. She finds a Coast Guard boat, and then the rest of the people are left there for the final course, dessert.
Nothing like a good old fashioned s'more.
Like a good old fashioned s'more. And it was such a funny way of Chef Slovak comparing s'mores to like people.
Yeah.
It's everything that's wrong with the world. It's processed. It's it's just nothing good
like
about
a good
it.
S'more, though.
Yeah, I do too. I like a good s'more. I like a bad s'more. And then he pours alcohol around. They're covered in this like mushroom like thing. I don't even know what you would just like head.
They're marshmallows.
Well, it's marshmallows, but like the way it goes over them. I'm not sure
it was like a vest or something.
Yeah, like
some kind of almost like a smock.
Yeah, and he lights them up, and they have chocolate on their head.
Chocolate like fezzes.
And there's like graham crackers scattered around, and then it's lit up, and everything goes, including them. And Margot gets away, and the scene is her eating her burger while the fire is happening off in the background. So, pretty good summarization, I think.
Yeah, I hope you weren't looking for a spoiler-free review.
Yeah, at this point, But what did you think, Brenton? What did you think?
Insanity. Made me a little uncomfortable at times.
Sure.
There was a little bit of dark comedy in there that did hit the spot, but I was just like, this is nuts. Like, this is so nuts. Because like at first I thought, and I texted you, I was like, oh, okay, I can get down with this, Chef Voldemort, basically. I didn't expect that to actually be what it was.
That's why I was just like, yep, or whatever I said. It was just like, very succinct, because
And then, like you said, I mean, like the intensity of, I think that, so if we're talking about this thematically, our society lives in excess, right? And I think the s'more is a good, and then you have these people who are like obsessive, because you have Tyler, and I think that that's what he represents, is he's a foodie. And so he's like obsessive over this stuff, but he obsesses about it, has no idea like what he's doing. You know what I mean? Like he put him in the kitchen. He couldn't, it was Tyler's bullshit. And then you have obviously the regular, and that's like a guy who's cheating on his wife. And, you had this woman who's a food critic and made her career out of putting places out of business by giving them bad reviews. So it's shows kind of the dregs of society a little bit. But I think with, like, ironically, with the course, the mess, like what was being conveyed was when you are a chef at that level, like that is your life. And it goes with, it's kind of like, we reviewed The Bear, which was about running a restaurant, but just the discipline and the education and the fact that this is like, you don't get breaks. You don't get a day off. You know what I mean? So I think thematically it was showing that side of things. That was probably like the main, if you call it like the main theme, whereas like just the way that people live in excess and kind of how we live our lives these days was very much kind of the underlying theme there. But I thought, like I said, I thought it was like nuts, but it was interesting, just very strange. And like you said, short, I think it's about an hour and 40 minutes.
Yeah.
And once you get into it and you're kind of like, okay, moving along, and like things progressively get more and more crazier, I think you just get more and more invested. You're like, okay, I got to see what the next course is.
Right.
Because if this one was this crazy, what's the next one going to be? You know what I mean? And so there was that kind of thing. But overall, I liked it, but it was like real weird.
I think it was the perfect way you could do something like this to kind of show the way, like a societal representation of like, people knew they were going to die. That was like weird. Once we realized that they knew they were going to die.
Well, at least he did. I don't know if they all did. We know that Tyler did.
We know that Tyler did. And you have to wonder if anyone else really knew.
Right.
We don't know. But there's still that idea that he at least knew that he would die. Mm-hmm. And he was the foodie. And it's like he cared so much about this one thing that he was willing to literally die and put his girlfriend or whatever at this point, in harm's way because of that.
And his behavior was so erratic. Like the rest of the men are running off and he's just like,
he's like trying to climb back and see what they're eating. And it's just so, And so I think it was this good representation of like society, to an extreme. Of course, it has to be a little bit extreme to represent it. You want to show the worst of people and how that actually represents, and how Chef Slowik was so disgusted by society at this point that this is the only way I can do it. I just have to like end it. I have to take the dregs and, get rid of them in my own personal way. And I thought that was interesting. I do think it's one of those movies where I liked it. I liked it very much. I don't know if it was as clever as it necessarily thought. Sure. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I didn't care either, because I still like that we're trying to do something different, and there has to be credit for that. I think there has to be credit of like, yes, it's body horror, but there is an actual premise to it as well. It's not just running and hacking. There's this idea that this guy was cheating on his wife. We cut off his ring finger. He has to deal with that. Those guys, those three guys that worked for that company were laundering money or whatever they were doing. Right. They were fixing the books, and that shows up on their tortilla.
Right.
That was a funny scene too, where like the pictures are on the tortillas, and so there's all these little things about these bad people, and so for that to be encapsulated and for it to go up in flames, their ideas essentially.
I think that the John Leguizamo character could have been maybe a little bit crafted a little bit better, because it was just a guy who, I had my first day off in months and I went to see your movie and I didn't like it. It's
Yeah.
like, well,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess maybe that shows how nut job this guy,
Right.
the chef was, but before we wrap it up and score this, I will say this: made myself a double cheeseburger tonight.
That was our hope. What we wanted to get was not necessarily, but a cheeseburger was done, not a double, but a cheeseburger nonetheless. So.
I didn't have a sesame seed bun, but everything else was accurate to the film. Caramelized the onions and everything.
Same.
So,
yeah.
Caramelized
the onions. Got to.
What would you score this?
I'll give it an 8.
Yeah, I'm not as high on it as that. I think I would give it a 7.
Okay.
I just, like you said, I think maybe they thought they were being a little bit more clever than they needed to be / really were, I guess, is what I'm saying. They weren't as clever as they thought. Yeah.
Yeah. But it was still one of those things where like perfect length too. Like that was, sure. I will say that really helped. That really would something about that, man. When you get that perfect length, even if the movie misses some parts, it gets a little boost for me because.
And this is how we arrived at this movie was you hadn't started, but we agreed, okay, we're going to watch White Noise and review that this week. And I got 15 minutes into it and I was like, why the hell is this movie so long and what is it even about?
I didn't know you're just 15 minutes in. That's funny.
I don't want to watch this. 20 maybe tops.
Yeah.
I don't like this. And so that's when you said we'll switch to the menu. It's only an hour and 40 minutes. I was like, okay, cool. So there you have it.
So even if you combine the time, even if you combine the time of watching the menu and what you had watched the other one, still less time than watching White Noise.
Yeah, I just couldn't. I couldn't do it. I'm like, there's a scene where early on in White Noise where Don Cheadle and Adam Driver are in the grocery store and they're with Adam Driver's wife, who it's like his fourth wife, and he's pointing out whose kids and from what relationship. And Don Cheadle's like, your wife has amazing hair. You better treasure that hair. I'm like, okay, I can't. This is too like artsy fartsy for me. Like, just nope. I don't get it. I don't get
Fair
it.
Enough.
You know, and there was a time in my life where I would have happily pretended to have gotten it, but that time is gone, and now I need Tyler's bullshit. All right, moving on.